On New Year's Eve, she arrived with 3 children, the rancher said. Tonight it begins with us. A biting wind blew across the desert, stirring the dust and sand into tiny storms that danced across the empty plain. The ranch, a cluster of low, weather-worn buildings, sat like a stubborn island in the middle of this barren expanse. It was quiet here, too quiet, except for the occasional creak of the windmill and the distant cries of the ranch animals. Rancher Jace Morgan wiped sweat and dust from his brow as he leaned against the railing of the main barn. His hands were rough, calloused from years of tending animals and repairing old equipment, but they moved with the precision of experience. Jace had lived here for decades, alone except for the occasional help from neighbors or travelers who passed through. Life on the edge of human-settled space demanded self-reliance. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. Jace had just finished checking the solar panels when a shimmer on the horizon caught his eye. At first, he thought it was a mirage, heat playing tricks on him, maybe. But as he squinted against the dying light, a figure emerged, moving slowly across the desert, leading 3 small silhouettes. The wind gusted, carrying the sound of soft footsteps over the sand. Jace's instincts tightened. Travelers out here were rare, and strangers were rarer still. Something about their movement made him uneasy. It was desperate, almost fearful. He set down the tools he was carrying and strode toward the road leading to the edge of the ranch. The woman came into view, her clothes worn and dusty, the edges torn as if she had been on the move for days. Her face was pale, streaked with dirt and tears, but her eyes were sharp, alert, scanning constantly as if expecting someone or something to appear from the shadows. The children clung to her, 2 boys and a girl, their expressions a mixture of exhaustion and curiosity. Jace called out, his voice firm but calm. "Hey, you there, come closer." The woman froze, glancing back over her shoulder. The children huddled closer to her. "Please, we need shelter," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, quivering with fear. Jace studied them carefully. He was not a man to be easily fooled, but something about her aura told him this wasn't a trick. There was no malice here, only fear and urgency. He made a quick decision. "All right, follow me," he said, motioning toward the ranch buildings. "You'll be safe here." The woman nodded, relief washing over her face. She guided the children along the path, their bare feet making soft prints in the sand. Jace's heart tightened at the sight. These were no ordinary travelers. The children were thin, clearly underfed, and their eyes held a wisdom beyond their years. When they reached the main house, Jace led them inside. The warmth of the house, though modest, seemed to envelop them like a protective shield. Jace gestured toward the living area. "Sit, rest, eat something." The woman hesitated for a moment, then sank into a chair, letting the children spread out around her. Jace went to the small kitchen and returned with bowls of thick stew, bread, and fresh water. He set the food down on the table. The children looked at the food with hungry eyes, but the oldest boy, maybe 8 or 9, waited for permission from the woman before eating. She nodded silently, and the children dug in, their hands trembling with exhaustion and hunger. Jace watched them carefully. He had seen hardship before. Years on the frontier taught him to recognize it instantly. But there was something different here, something that made him uneasy. He could feel it in the tension of the woman's shoulders, in the alertness of the children. They were hiding something. Finally, the woman spoke, her voice steadier now. "Thank you. We have nowhere else to go. They are coming for us." Jace's brow furrowed. "Who's coming?" "Aliens," she said, and her eyes darted nervously toward the darkening horizon. "The ones who control the colonies. They don't want humans like us to exist freely anymore. We escaped, but they will track us." Jace swallowed. Aliens were real, and their presence had been a constant threat in human-settled space. But they were distant, usually a problem for the corporate colonies, not small ranches on the edge of nowhere. Yet the fear in her eyes told him this was serious. "Tonight?" he asked. Yes, tonight, she said, voice trembling. On New Year's Eve they start. They come for those who try to resist. Jace felt a surge of responsibility. This was more than a matter of offering temporary shelter. These lives, these children, depended on him. The ranch might be just one small outpost in the vast desert, but he knew humans had a way of fighting back, using their minds, their creativity, their courage. He could see it in himself, in the way he had lived and survived all these years, and he recognized it in the children, though they were young. "All right," he said firmly. "If they come, we don't run, we don't hide. Tonight we protect each other. I'll get the others." The woman looked at him, her eyes wide with surprise and hope. "Others?" Jace nodded. "Neighbors, people I trust. Humans can be stubborn and strong when we need to be. You'll see." He stepped outside and bellowed across the ranch. "Gather around. We've got guests, and tonight we may need to fight for our lives." From the shadows of the outbuildings and nearby tents, people emerged, armed with makeshift weapons, tools, and whatever they could find. There were men, women, and even a few older children. They trusted Jace. He was their leader, their protector. And tonight they would need every ounce of courage they could muster. Back inside, the woman whispered to the children, "Stay close. They're humans like us and they'll help." The children nodded, their eyes wide but determined. Even in fear, they showed an innate strength, a spark that told Jace they were more than ordinary children. Somehow, he felt certain, they might be the key to surviving what was coming. As the sun disappeared completely and the first stars appeared in the night sky, a sense of tension settled over the ranch. The wind howled outside, carrying with it the promise of a storm, both natural and otherwise. Jace moved quietly among the gathered people, checking weapons, barricading doors, and planning strategies. He explained the terrain, pointing out hiding places, escape routes, and vantage points. Every small detail could save lives tonight. By the time the moon rose high in the sky, the ranch was ready. Jace looked at the woman and her children, sitting quietly but alert near the fireplace. "We'll face them together," he said. "Humans always find a way, no matter what comes. Tonight it begins with us." The woman nodded, her lips trembling in a small, hopeful smile. She whispered to the children, "Remember, be brave. We are not alone." Outside, the desert was silent, almost eerily so. But somewhere far away, across the stars and across hostile territories, the first alien scouts were moving closer. And in the hearts of those inside the ranch, a spark of determination burned brighter than any fear. Humans had survived because they adapted. Humans had survived because they cared, because they fought, because they never gave up. And tonight, Jace Morgan, a simple rancher, knew that same human spirit would be the key to protecting this small, fragile group of fugitives. The night was just beginning. Night had fully settled over the desert ranch, and the wind had turned colder, cutting through layers of cloth and leather. Inside the small, dimly lit house, shadows danced across the walls from the flickering fireplace. The children were still awake, wide-eyed, trying to understand the seriousness of their situation. Jace Morgan moved quietly among them, checking doors and windows, making sure every entry point was secure. The woman who had introduced herself as Leora sat near the fireplace, her arms wrapped tightly around her knees. She was tired, but she knew she had to speak. Finally, she looked up at Jace. "They are fast," she said softly. "They don't just send soldiers or machines. They send scouts first to find us, to track us wherever we hide." Jace listened carefully. He had dealt with difficult situations before, but this was different. The fear in her voice was real. And the determination, the way she was careful not to scare the children, showed that she had survived longer than most humans would in her position. "Scouts?" Jace asked. "Machines or people?" "They are both," Leora said. "They watch, calculate, and report. And once they find you, the main force arrives. They are precise, ruthless. They do not make mistakes." The oldest child, a boy named Kale, leaned forward. "Why do they want us?" he asked. His voice was steady, even though his eyes betrayed fear. Leora took a deep breath. Because you are human and because you are free, they fear humans who do not obey. They fear the ones who think, who resist, who fight back. And you, Kale, you and your siblings, you are special. You have skills they cannot predict. Jace's eyebrows shot up. Special? How? The boy shook his head. I don't know. Mom says we have gifts, things they can't understand, things they can't control. Jace looked at Leora, studying her expression. He had always believed humans were strong, resourceful, and clever. But the way she spoke made him realize there was something more, something in these children that could make a difference when facing a far stronger enemy. We don't have much time, Leora said. They are coming tonight. They will scan this area soon. You have to be ready. Jace nodded. Then we prepare. Humans have faced worse odds before. We've survived deserts, storms, and battles we should have lost. We can do this again. He stood and walked to the small table where the tools of their survival were scattered: old rifles, knives, makeshift explosives, and traps. He began organizing them carefully, checking every detail. Every person in the ranch had a role to play, and Jace knew that even a small mistake could cost lives. Leora watched him silently. She was impressed by his calm determination. I thought maybe we would be alone, she said. But humans, you never give up. Even when things seem hopeless. Jace gave a small smile. It's what we do. We survive. We protect each other. That's how humans thrive. And tonight, that's exactly what we'll do. The children listened intently. Despite their exhaustion, they understood that this was a moment for courage. Kale and his siblings moved closer to the walls, where they could hide if necessary. But Jace noticed their eyes, curious, alert, waiting for instructions. Kale, Tira, and Myro, Jace said, using the children's names, you'll need to stay calm. Follow instructions, watch for danger, and trust your instincts. Humans have survived because we are smart, fast, and brave. Tonight, your instincts may save lives. The children nodded, swallowing hard. They trusted him, and in that trust Jace felt a responsibility heavier than any he had ever carried. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying a faint metallic hum. Jace froze, listening carefully. They're close, he whispered. Very close. Leora's hands clenched around her knees. They'll come in waves. First the scouts, then the main force. Jace moved to the windows and peered through the darkness. He could just make out small, glimmering shapes moving across the desert. They were careful, precise, scanning the terrain. These were not ordinary intruders. These were scouts, fast, calculated, almost inhuman in their approach. Everyone, Jace called quietly, positions. Stay low, use the cover of the buildings. Don't show yourselves unless necessary. The ranchers moved silently, checking their barricades, positioning themselves along likely entry points. Even in the dim light, the tension was palpable. Each person knew that tonight might be their greatest challenge yet. But they were humans, and humans had a way of turning even the most hopeless situations into victories. The children were guided to a small storage room, away from the windows with a clear view of the exits. Jace knelt beside them. Listen, he said softly, fear is natural. But don't let it control you. Humans survive because we think, because we adapt. Watch, learn, and be ready to act. Leora stayed near the fireplace, whispering quietly to the children, calming them, reminding them that humans had survived countless dangers and that tonight they could survive again. The first alien scout appeared near the edge of the property. It was sleek, metallic, almost snake-like in its movements, scanning the land with glowing sensors. Jace's heart pounded, but he kept his breathing steady. He had seen drones before, but these were more advanced, almost alive in their efficiency. They're checking the ground, he whispered. Stay calm. The scouts moved methodically, ignoring the ranch buildings at first, focusing on the sand, analyzing tracks. Jace gestured to the ranchers. Now, engage if necessary, but be smart. Use your traps, use the terrain. Don't waste effort. The ranchers, though small in number, acted like a single organism. They had prepared for this, each one understanding their role. When the first scout's sensors swept past, a hidden net trap dropped, snagging the machine. It struggled, sparking and whirring. Another rancher used a portable EMP device, short-circuiting one of the approaching drones. Leora gasped. Humans fight differently, Jace nodded. We fight with our minds, not just our weapons. You can't calculate everything we do. The scouts adapted quickly, but humans had the advantage of unpredictability. The ranchers used the environment, sandstorms, hidden pits, and narrow passages, to their benefit. The scouts were advanced, but they could not account for human creativity, courage, and stubbornness. The children watched from their hiding spot, wide-eyed but not afraid. They saw humans in action, using intelligence, intuition, and bravery to survive against impossible odds. Kale whispered, "We can do this, we just have to think like them." Jace noticed and nodded silently. The spark of understanding in the children's eyes gave him hope. Humans were not just strong, they were teachable, adaptable, and fearless when necessary. Tonight, even the youngest could make a difference. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. The scouts retreated, unable to find a clear way in. Jace knew it was only temporary. The main force would arrive soon, and they would be stronger, smarter, and more relentless. But the ranchers had done something important tonight. They had shown that humans were not easy prey. They had survived the first wave. Leora approached Jace quietly. "You think we can win?" she asked. Jace looked out toward the desert at the horizon where the scouts had disappeared. "We don't just fight to win," he said. "We fight to survive, and humans survive. That's what makes us strong. That's what makes us unpredictable. That's why they fear us." The children, listening, felt a growing courage. The woman smiled faintly, a glimmer of hope lighting her face. She realized that in these humans, in this ranch, she and her children had found allies who could match the alien threat in ways the machines could not understand. As the night deepened, Jace and the ranchers reinforced their defenses, sharing strategies and coordinating silently. Every sound in the desert could mean danger, but the ranchers moved with quiet confidence. Humans had survived countless battles, both against each other and against nature itself. And tonight, they would survive again, not because they were the strongest, but because they were clever, courageous, and united. Outside, the stars shone brightly over the desert, indifferent to the struggle below. But within the ranch, a spark of human determination burned brighter than any fear. Jace knew the main wave was coming, and when it did, humans would be ready. Because humans did not just survive, they adapted, they learned, and they fought. And tonight, that same spirit would face an enemy that believed it could calculate, control, and conquer. But humans were more than calculations. Humans were unpredictable. Humans were brave. And humans would fight. The desert night was colder than usual, and the wind carried a strange, metallic hum that made the ranch animals uneasy. Inside the small house, Jace Morgan moved like a shadow, checking barricades, making sure each door and window was secure. The ranchers were tense but calm, their training and experience guiding their movements. Even in the face of a superior enemy, humans had a way of remaining focused. "Kale tira miro," Jace whispered, kneeling beside the children. "Stay close. Remember everything we've practiced. Watch, listen, and act only when necessary. Do you understand?" The children nodded, their eyes wide but determined. Despite being young, they already carried a spark of courage that made Jace hopeful. These were no ordinary children. Their alertness, their curiosity, and the way they instinctively observed everything around them hinted at something extraordinary. Outside, the faint hum grew louder. The alien forces were arriving. Their scouts had been cautious, but now the main wave was approaching, advanced machines and alien soldiers moving with precision and efficiency. They scanned the desert for any sign of life, their sensors cutting through the darkness like blades. Jace took a deep breath and called out softly to the ranchers, "Positions. Now, remember we fight smart, not just hard. Use every advantage the land gives us." The ranchers moved silently, taking up positions behind sand dunes, walls, and hidden pits. They had limited numbers, but they had one advantage the aliens could not predict: human ingenuity. Every trap, every barricade, every movement was designed to exploit the enemy's weakness, their inability to anticipate creativity and emotional risk. The first scout approached the main house, its metallic body gleaming in the starlight. It paused, sensors sweeping the ground. Jace waited until it stepped into a narrow passage lined with tripwires and hidden nets. With a quiet pull of a lever, the trap snapped, ensnaring the scout. Sparks flew and the machine struggled, jerking violently. "Good," Jace whispered. "Keep it up. They don't expect traps." Another scout appeared near the barn. A rancher with a makeshift EMP device activated it, sending a pulse that short-circuited the machine's circuits. It collapsed, twitching before going silent. Leora watched, awe in her eyes. "You fight differently," she murmured. "Humans, you're unpredictable." Jace gave a small smile. "That's why we survive. Machines can calculate, but they can't understand creativity, courage, or instinct." The main force arrived soon after, larger than the scouts. Sleek metallic walkers stomped through the desert, carrying advanced weapons, their movements precise and terrifyingly fast. Alien soldiers followed, moving with a cold efficiency that made them almost inhuman. But the humans did not panic. They had one thing the aliens could not predict: adaptability. Jace coordinated the defense like a general in a war long practiced. The ranchers set off hidden explosives, creating dust clouds that obscured the aliens' sensors. Molotov-style fire bottles ignited in narrow passes, forcing the walkers to change course. The humans used the terrain to their advantage: sand pits, narrow passages, and ridges that slowed the enemy. Kale, Tira, and Myro watched from their hiding spot, eyes wide. But they were not idle. Kale noticed a walker aiming toward the children's storage room. With a quiet nod from Jace, he grabbed a small metal pipe and threw it to create a diversion. The walker turned, giving the humans a small advantage. Tira, sensing movement near the perimeter, whispered, "I can see another one. Behind the dunes." Myro, using a small reflective device, flashed the alien sensors, confusing their visual systems. Jace watched, impressed. Even in fear, the children were thinking strategically, using observation and intuition to help the defense. The battle raged for hours, the sounds of machines clashing against makeshift human defenses echoing across the desert. Sparks, smoke, and sand filled the air, making it almost impossible to see. But humans had a way of surviving impossible odds. They were clever, resourceful, and united. At one point, a walker broke through one of the barricades, advancing toward the main house. Jace grabbed a rope, lassoed its leg, and pulled, causing it to trip into a pit that had been covered with sand. It struggled but fell completely, giving the ranchers a chance to strike it down. Leora was amazed. You actually fight back." "Humans, you're stronger than they imagine." Jace nodded, his eyes never leaving the battlefield. "Strength isn't just about muscle or weapons. It's about courage, thinking fast, and using every resource you have. Humans survive because we never stop." The children, seeing the humans fight with such bravery, felt their own courage growing. Kale whispered to his siblings, "We can do this, we can help." Suddenly, one of the alien soldiers appeared near the children's hiding spot. Myro, quick thinking, dropped a small pile of sand mixed with reflective metal scraps. The alien paused, sensors confused by the light reflections. Tira seized the moment, pulling a lever that released a hidden net from the ceiling. The alien was trapped, struggling violently. Jace saw this and gave a nod of approval. Even the children could make a difference. Human instinct, creativity, and courage were unpredictable, and tonight it was saving lives. The battle reached its climax when a larger alien walker, armed with a heavy energy cannon, advanced toward the ranch. Jace and the ranchers coordinated a bold plan. Using ropes, sand pits, and coordinated attacks, they lured the walker into a narrow pass. Hidden explosives detonated beneath it, toppling the massive machine. Sparks flew and the alien weapons short-circuited, leaving it vulnerable to human attack. For a moment, silence fell. The humans were exhausted, breathing heavily, but they had survived the first major wave. They had proven that even against technologically superior enemies, humans could endure. Their unpredictability, creativity, and courage were unmatched. Leora approached Jace, her face lit with a mix of awe and relief. "I didn't know humans could fight like this," she said. "You're amazing," Jace shook his head. "We're just humans. We survive because we adapt, because we think, and because we don't give up. That's what makes us strong." The children, inspired by the defense, realized they were learning the same lessons. Humans were not just strong in body, they were strong in mind and spirit. Kale whispered, "We can be brave too." Outside, the desert returned to an uneasy quiet. The alien forces had retreated, at least for now, but Jace knew the main wave was still coming. They would be stronger, more relentless, and smarter, but humans had a way of surviving the impossible. Inside the ranch, the group gathered. Leora held her children close, grateful for the humans who had protected them. The ranchers cleaned weapons, reinforced barricades, and shared quiet words of encouragement. They knew this was only the beginning. Jace looked at the children and said, "Tonight, you saw humans fight not because we were stronger, but because we were clever, brave, and united. Remember that. That is our true power." Kale, Tiara, and Myro nodded, understanding the meaning in his words. They had witnessed courage, creativity, and human ingenuity in action. They felt inspired, ready to learn and help in whatever way they could. The desert night stretched on, filled with quiet anticipation. Humans had survived the first major attack. They had turned the odds in their favor through intelligence, bravery, and unity. And when the next wave came, they would be ready. Jace looked out across the desert at the horizon where the alien forces had disappeared for now. "Humans survive," he whispered to himself, "because we never give up, because we fight, and because we protect each other." The children, listening to the rancher's words, felt a spark of hope. They understood that courage was not about being fearless, it was about acting even when afraid. And tonight, that lesson would be remembered forever. Outside, the stars shone cold and bright, indifferent to the struggle below. But within the ranch, a fire burned, human determination, courage, and hope. And in that fire, the humans knew one thing for certain. No matter the enemy, no matter the odds, they would survive. Because humans were not predictable. Humans were not easily defeated. Humans were brave, clever, and united. And humans always found a way. Dawn was still hours away, but the ranch was alive with quiet activity. The humans who had survived the night's battle moved carefully, repairing barricades, checking weapons, and whispering words of encouragement. The adrenaline from the previous fight was fading, replaced by a focused calm. Every person knew that the main alien force would return, stronger and smarter than before. There was no time for fear. Jace Morgan sat near the fireplace, watching Leora and her children. Kale, Tiara, and Myro were unusually quiet, their eyes reflecting both exhaustion and curiosity. They had seen the humans fight with courage and ingenuity, and it had left a mark on them. But now, a new challenge awaited, understanding why the aliens wanted them so badly. Leora took a deep breath. "There's something I haven't told you," she said, her voice low but urgent. "Something about the children." Jace leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "What is it?" "They are different," Leora explained. "A long time ago, humans experimented with genetics. They created a small number of children with enhanced abilities, heightened intelligence, intuition, and adaptability. The aliens discovered this and they fear it. They want to control it or destroy it. That's why we're being hunted. Jace's eyes widened. Enhanced abilities, he asked. You mean they're stronger than ordinary humans? Leora shook her head. Not stronger in a normal way. They are faster thinkers, better problem solvers, and they can sense danger instinctively. Even small children can outsmart alien machines in ways adults cannot. That's why they can't calculate what the children will do. That's why they are afraid. Kale, listening closely, whispered, "So, we can help fight." "Yes," Leora said softly, "but only if we are careful. Only if we work together with the humans here. You are a part of something bigger now, a chance to change the outcome, to survive against impossible odds." Jace sat back, absorbing the revelation. He had always believed in human resilience and ingenuity, but this added a new dimension. The children were not just survivors. They were a unique advantage, a spark that could turn the tide. "We need a plan," Jace said, determination hardening his voice. "The aliens will come back. They'll be smarter, stronger, and faster. But humans, we adapt. We think. We fight. And now we have something they cannot predict." Leora nodded. "I will guide the children. They must focus their instincts and abilities carefully. One mistake could be dangerous, but used wisely, they can make a difference." The ranchers gathered around, listening as Jace outlined a strategy. "We know their scouts came first. They are cautious, calculating. The main force will be heavier, walkers, soldiers, weapons more advanced than we've seen. But we know the terrain. We know the tricks of the desert. And now we have another advantage. The children can observe, predict, and act in ways the aliens cannot anticipate." A rancher spoke up, his voice calm but firm. "We've survived machines before, but this is bigger. Are you sure we can do it?" Jace nodded. "We don't have a choice, but humans survive because we are clever, adaptable, and united. That's how we've survived countless dangers. That's how we will survive tonight." The children moved closer to Jace and Leora. Kale's eyes were sharp, his mind racing. "What should we do?" he asked. Leora smiled faintly. "Observe, predict, and signal. Watch the enemy, notice patterns, and help guide the humans. Your instincts are fast, trust them. You are small, but your thinking is sharp. Humans have survived because we use every skill we have, no matter how small it seems. Tonight your skills will matter." Tira and Myro nodded, understanding the gravity of their role. Despite their youth, they felt the weight of responsibility and the spark of courage that had been growing since their arrival at the ranch. As the night stretched on, the humans prepared. Barricades were reinforced, traps were hidden, and weapons checked. The children observed quietly, their senses sharp, their minds analyzing every detail. They noticed footprints in the sand, unusual glints in the distance, and patterns in the way the scouts had approached. Every detail mattered. Every instinct could save lives. Finally, the first signs of the alien approach appeared. Distant hums and flickering lights signaled the arrival of the main force. The ranchers took their positions, hearts steady, minds focused. Jace moved among them, checking readiness. "Remember," he whispered, "humans survive because we adapt. We are unpredictable. Use everything around you, the terrain, the traps, your minds. The enemy expects brute force. We give them strategy, courage, and unity. And tonight we have something they cannot calculate." Leora knelt beside the children, whispering instructions. Kale noticed the patterns. Tira watched the shadows. Myro, signal when you see danger. Together we guide the humans. Use your instincts. The alien forces reached the ranch, their advanced sensors sweeping the area. Massive walkers stomped across the desert, alien soldiers moved with calculated precision, and energy weapons scanned for life signs. But the humans were ready. Traps were triggered, slowing the walkers. Imp pulses disabled some machines. Dust clouds, fire bottles, and narrow terrain channeled the aliens into disadvantageous positions. Humans moved like a single organism, coordinated and agile. Kale pointed toward a narrow path where a walker was advancing. "Over here," he whispered, signaling to the humans. Jace nodded, using the children's guidance to redirect the rancher's attack. Tira noticed another walker hiding near the ridge. She signaled with a reflective device, confusing the sensors and giving the humans a chance to strike. Myro used small mechanical distractions, drawing alien attention away from the main barricades. Jace watched in awe. Even in the chaos of battle, the children's instincts were precise, their predictions accurate. Humans, guided by instinct, courage, and ingenuity, struck where it mattered most. The aliens adapted, but humans adapted faster. Traps were reset, tactics shifted, and every action relied on observation and teamwork. The children's abilities amplified human efficiency, turning a desperate fight into a calculated defense. At one point, a massive walker, armed with a heavy cannon, advanced toward the house. Jace coordinated a complex maneuver, using the children's guidance. Dust clouds obscured the sensors, traps slowed its movement, and a coordinated rope-end explosive system toppled the machine. Sparks and smoke filled the air, and the alien weapons short-circuited, leaving it vulnerable. The humans pressed their advantage, striking quickly and decisively. Every move was calculated, every attack deliberate. Even the smallest human action had the potential to change the outcome. Finally, the alien forces faltered. Walkers were disabled, soldiers retreated, and the desert fell into uneasy silence. The humans had survived the main attack not by brute force, but by ingenuity, courage, and unity. Leora gathered her children, pride and relief shining in her eyes. "You did it," she whispered. "Your instincts saved lives. You are human, and humans survive because we adapt, think, and fight together." Jace nodded, turning to the ranchers. "Tonight, we've proven something important. Humans are not easily defeated. Our strength lies not in numbers or technology, but in our minds, our courage, and our ability to act together. And now, with these children, we have an advantage no enemy can calculate." Kale, Tira, and Myro looked around at the exhausted but victorious humans. They had witnessed bravery, creativity, and determination. They understood that survival was not about strength alone. It was about thinking, acting, and never giving up. The sun began to rise over the desert horizon, casting light on the battered but resilient ranch. The humans had survived against incredible odds, guided by instinct, intelligence, and courage. And they had learned something crucial. Humans were unpredictable, resourceful, and strong, in ways the enemy could never understand. Jace watched the sun rise, a quiet smile on his face. "Humans survive," he whispered, "because we think, because we adapt, and because we never give up. And now we have something even more powerful: instinct, courage, and unity. Tonight we fight not just for survival, but for the future." Leora held her children close, feeling hope for the first time in weeks. The children had learned courage and strategy from the humans around them, and the humans had learned the power of instinct and intuition from the children. Together, they were stronger than any machine, any alien, any threat. Outside, the desert stretched endlessly, calm once more. But inside the ranch, a fire burned brighter than any fear: human determination, ingenuity, and hope. And in that fire, one thing was certain: humans, no matter the odds, always find a way. The desert was quiet as the first rays of the New Year's sun touched the horizon. A cold wind swept across the barren land, carrying the scent of sand and dust. The ranch was calm, but beneath the surface, tension crackled like an electric current. Jace Morgan stood outside the main house, his eyes scanning the horizon. He knew the final assault was coming. The aliens would not give up so easily. Inside, the humans moved quietly, checking weapons, reinforcing traps, and sharing whispered words of encouragement. Leora guided her children, making sure they stayed calm and ready. Kale, Tira, and Myro had watched humans survive, adapt, and fight in ways no machine could anticipate. Now, it was time for them to use their instincts to guide the humans in a decisive strike. "Remember," Jace said, addressing the group, We fight smart together. Humans survive because we adapt, we think, and we never give up. The enemy may be strong, but they cannot predict us. Tonight we finish this." The humans nodded. Exhaustion was written on their faces, but so was determination. They had faced impossible odds before and survived. Now they would turn their survival into victory. From the ridge, Cale noticed movement. "They're coming," he whispered to his mother. Leora nodded, signaling the ranchers. "Positions, now." The first wave of aliens appeared, advanced walkers, heavily armed soldiers, and drones scanning for life signs. But the humans were ready. Traps had been reset, barricades strengthened, and every approach covered. The children's instincts allowed them to spot weak points in the alien formation, guiding the humans toward strategic strikes. Jace moved among his people, directing attacks. "Now, push the left flank. Use the traps and dust. Confuse them." Humans moved with precision, coordinated but unpredictable. Every action was a combination of courage, intelligence, and instinct, the very traits that made them uniquely human. The children were crucial. Cale signaled toward a walker hiding behind a dune. Tira used reflective metal scraps to confuse its sensors. Myro triggered a small mechanical diversion that drew alien attention away from a critical barricade. Every move was instinctive, rapid, and effective. The aliens adapted, but humans adapted faster. They used the terrain to their advantage, forcing walkers into sand traps and narrow passes. Energy weapons misfired when dust clouds interfered with sensors. Machines toppled, sparks flying, while humans moved quickly, striking where it mattered most. Jace coordinated a daring plan. "We lure the main walker into the trap, everyone ready." Hidden ropes, explosives, and careful timing turned the landscape into a weapon. When the massive walker stepped into the narrow pass, Jace signaled the ranchers. Traps were triggered. Explosives detonated. The walker toppled, sparking violently, immobilized and vulnerable. The humans pressed their advantage. Small teams attacked with precision, disabling weapons and forcing the aliens to retreat. Even though they were outnumbered, humans had one advantage the aliens could not predict: creativity, courage, and unity. Leora watched the scene, pride shining in her eyes. "The children, they're helping," she whispered. "Their instincts guide the humans. They see what we can't. They are part of this victory." Cale, Tira, and Myro moved with the humans, signaling dangers, pointing out weak points, and using their intuition to direct attacks. Every small action changed the battlefield. They were young, but their minds were sharp, their instincts reliable. The humans had survived before because they adapted now. They thrived because they combined instinct with courage. The alien commander, a massive armored figure, appeared near the top of a ridge, commanding troops and directing walkers. Jace saw it and knew the final move was near. "We take the ridge," he shouted. "Move together, use the traps, and strike hard." Humans advanced with careful coordination. The children's instincts allowed them to anticipate the aliens' moves, avoiding ambushes and directing humans to critical points. Every step, every action relied on teamwork, intelligence, and courage. The final battle was chaotic but precise. Walkers toppled into pits, drones short-circuited, and soldiers were neutralized with careful traps and human ingenuity. Even the alien commander's advanced weapons were rendered useless by dust, terrain, and clever human strategy. Cale signaled toward the commander. "Left flank." Now Jace saw the opening. With a coordinated push, the humans surrounded the commander, using ropes and leverage to topple it. Sparks and smoke filled the air as the alien fell, unable to continue its assault. For the first time, silence fell over the desert. The humans had survived the final wave. The ranch was battered, scorched, and covered in dust, but it stood. Humans had turned the odds in their favor, relying not on strength alone, but on intelligence, courage, and unity. Leora gathered her children, smiling through tears. "You did it," she whispered. Your instincts guided the humans. Together, we survived. Jace approached, looking at the exhausted but victorious humans. Tonight, we've proven something important, he said. Humans survive not because of numbers or machines, but because of courage, creativity, and unity. And now, we've proven we can face anything, no matter how impossible it seems. The children looked around, understanding the lesson. Humans were not easily defeated. Humans thrived because they adapted, observed, and acted with courage. Even in the face of superior technology, humans had used strategy, instinct, and creativity to survive. As the sun climbed higher, the ranchers began tending the wounded, repairing structures, and sharing food and water. Despite exhaustion, there was a sense of pride and accomplishment. They had faced a powerful enemy and survived, relying on the human spirit, ingenuity, courage, and unity. Kale, Tira, and Myro helped wherever they could, small but significant contributions guiding humans to maintain control. The desert, once a place of fear, now felt like a place of triumph. Humans had adapted, survived, and won. Jace looked out across the horizon at the calm desert that had been a battlefield just hours before. Humans survive, he whispered. We think, we act, and we never give up. We protect each other. And tonight the universe learned something important. Humans are not easy to defeat. Leora held her children close, pride and relief mingling on her face. We are safe for now, she whispered. Because humans never give up. Because we fight. Because we are unpredictable. The ranchers and the fugitives gathered outside as the sun rose fully over the desert. Together, they looked toward the horizon, knowing that the fight was over for now. Humans had survived against overwhelming odds. They had used courage, intelligence, and unity to turn near-certain defeat into victory. Jace turned to the group, his voice carrying over the desert. Tonight, we started a new chapter. A chapter where humans fight not just for survival, but for hope, for freedom, for each other. Tonight, it begins with us. And tomorrow, the universe will remember. The children smiled faintly, their eyes bright with understanding. They had seen humans at their best, brave, clever, and united. They had learned courage, adaptability, and the power of instinct. And they knew, deep down, that humanity was capable of facing any challenge, no matter how impossible it seemed. The desert was calm now, but the memory of the battle remained, sparks in the sand, scorch marks on the rocks, and the hum of energy still lingering in the air. But among the humans, there was a fire that no enemy could extinguish. Determination, ingenuity, and hope. The sun rose higher, casting light over the ranch, illuminating faces tired but proud. Jace smiled at the children. You've learned something important tonight, he said. Humans survive because we think, we act, we adapt, and we never give up. Remember that, always. Kale, Tira, and Myro nodded, carrying the lesson in their hearts. They had survived, learned, and contributed. Together with the humans, they had turned despair into triumph. As the first morning of the new year broke across the desert, a sense of calm settled over the ranch. The aliens had retreated, but humans had proven something far more important. Courage, ingenuity, and unity were stronger than any machine, any enemy, and any odds. Jace looked across the land one last time, knowing the struggle was not over, but confident in the human spirit. Humans survive, he whispered again, because we never give up, because we fight, because we are united, and no matter what comes next, the universe will know our strength. The children stood beside him, small but courageous, eyes bright with understanding. The humans had survived the impossible, and together they had created a new dawn, a dawn where hope, courage, and unity would always shine. And for the first time in weeks, everyone felt it, a true new beginning.